But there are like a lot of SMB brands who can't pay for NetSuite, who can't pay for the customizations needed for NetSuite. And they were still sitting in spreadsheets. Often it's like they are not getting the most out of the data. That's what made me the most curious.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Coffee Break podcast. Running a fashion brand is tough. If your operations still live in spreadsheets, things can go off track very fast. Missed orders, stuck issues, and way too much manual work will hold your work back. So it's very, very difficult. So we want to dive into this topic today. And with me on the show, I have Harish Chandramowli. And we want to talk about and look into how AI can help you to clean up the chaos and run a smoother and smarter business. Harish is the co-founder and CTO of Flaire, a AI-powered ERP platform built for fashion brands. Flaire helps turn messy operations into clean and scalable growth. And we want to dive into this right now. So let's welcome him to the show. Hi, Harish. How are you today?
Good.
Harish, what does a typical day look for a fashion brand stuck in spreadsheets?
So some of the fashion brands whom we moved from spreadsheet to Flaire, some of the highlights they say are like, one, when there are too many spreadsheets, they miss coordinating between them because the data gets replicated in different spreadsheets. A typical example would be a purchase order manager knows when you are going to receive an item, what date clothing is going to come. And then there would be a marketing person who would be coordinating like a marketing campaign. And that means before you list online, you need a model to come in, you need some photo shoots, you need to book the dates. And that needs to be like the next day of the sample arrives, because you don't want to give the difference. That means lost days in sale. And when there are multiple spreadsheets, one person updates the PO manager updates the spreadsheet where you track the productions and like incoming inventories. But then the marketing campaign manager just doesn't see it. But when everything is in one system, for example, in these cases, one person enters the data, everyone gets different like views similar to spreadsheet, but the data just flows through everywhere. That means you don't miss the dates, you don't miss the updates. So those are like some of the things I have heard from fashion brand on how they operate. But also, again, everyone's day-to-day work within fashion brands is very different. When you are small, there are like 2 or 3 people who does everything, which actually is easier to coordinate. Everyone has everything in their mind. And as you grow, you have a CEO who makes business decision, who sees how profitable we are, not just like when the items are coming in, and then makes decisions around that. And then you have a planner who needs to understand how much items are coming in, when they are coming in, as well as like how much we are selling. Are we selling certain item faster? Also imagine in fashion, you have like a very specific time period, a quick time period to sell. Because once the season is out, a season is like 3 to 4 months. Once the season is out, you are sitting on the inventory. Those clothes are not going to move out. So the planning becomes more and more critical and important in fashion industry. So you have a planner who does that, and then your procurement manager or production manager who kind of negotiates with factory, especially with the tariff, all the numbers changing. This takes a higher precedence these days. How do you figure out where to get the right inventories? And then you have like marketing, PR, like different people. But yes, it's mostly like someone starts wearing be like jack of all trades, and as the company expands, you bring in more people.
Now, obviously, as you said, small brands might start as a one-man show, and then a spreadsheet is fine because you have everything in the back of your mind. But as you grow, things become more complicated. How did your past work with data, and you're coming from that side, help you understand these problems?
So one, I'm not a fashion person, first of all. Me being in fashion industry was something I never imagined 5-6 years back, I guess. I worked at Bloomberg, MongoDB, some of the very famous data platform, and helped build some of the core products. And I was basically in the store called ONS in like Soho, and hearing to their back office meetings, kind of looking at like talking to their founder and just observing how they are operating. And I realized like back office and operations of fashion is fundamentally a data and workflow problem. And one, I don't want, just because it's the problem I like, and I've been doing it in different industries for the past decade, I don't want to jump in. So I was looking at the existing solutions. One of the things I realized is like Shopify has done an amazing job with e-commerce and the front end of fashion, storefronts and everything. And then if you're like 100 million plus brand, NetSuite is like a gold standard. But there are like a lot of SMB brands who can't pay for NetSuite, who can't pay for the customizations needed for NetSuite. And they were still sitting in spreadsheets and they were missing these updates. They often, it's like they are not getting the most out of the data. And coming from data background, that's what made me the most curious. Like, how can I bring in innovation for this SMB market without making them pay the 100K customization fees that a NetSuite charges? I built, if for people who do not know, MongoDB is like a database where it holds all the data. I built some parts of like their serverless database. And usually in database context, we see everything as text and numbers. But when I was talking to fashion industry, you have like colors, UPC codes, as like this kind of text and numbers kind of primitive data types. That's what people use, the terms people use every day. And color is nothing but like a bunch of like X code, which is the characters, and then like name and everything. So how can I extend this to make it flexible and bring innovation so that a database itself can hold these kind of fashion specific data? And that led us to be like, if we have like think Alala is like a female athletic wear brand and like a TA3 like a female swimwear brand. When they use the platform, they have like cup size, torso length, regular sizes, and then color to form a SKU. Whereas we have like men's fashion wear brand ONS, which I mentioned about, is like men's fashion wear, who just sees their product as like t-shirt is just color and size. That's it. So we made it flexible that based on your business, how you want to see your business, how you want to analyze your business, you can just like fill an Excel sheet of this is the properties I need, boom, the software would come up. So that helps you make the business decision faster. A lot of things I explained are technical on like how innovation came in, but at the end of the day, as a user, you get a product where you view it very similar to spreadsheet. You get the columns that you use right now to make business decisions. That's pretty much the crux of how to bring SMBs the data that they can use. They can get the best out of those data.
It makes perfect sense. As you said, fashion industry, there's just different data points that you don't have in under other industries. And you're stuck in a system that might not really serve your purpose in running your own business there. Now, tell me, data, obviously nowadays, data equals AI, because that's the fastest way to crush the data to get output that you can really use. How does your system help on that front?
So I can talk about AI in two ways when it comes to ERP. One easier part everyone relates is that, hey, I have these data. I need to ask questions around what is selling fast, what is not selling fast, what are the things that might need replenishment. Remember, one of the things is like AI cannot just go and keep ordering in fashion industry because of the seasonality I talked about. January of this month might be colder than January of last month. So people's purchasing methods differ. That means it's not like a typical other retail industry where you could just ask like, I want to compare my last year's sales data and order it, right? Because that is like the unknown factor that comes into play. But what people want to do is like, hey, last year at these temperature weather situations in these months, what did I sell? Which product I sell? Then you can ask the AI like, now I want to compare similar products and then make planning decision. So technically where I'm coming at is like maybe AI is not there to take over a planner's whole workflow, but it is going to enable planners to be more efficient. That's the easier part of AI. I feel like so many companies are trying to do it. And if you are in Shopify, there are not just Flaire, right? There are so many other people out there. The other part of it, which I observed throughout the process, is that for these people to make decisions, for AI to make decisions, you need data that's trustworthy. And that's where everything lives in spreadsheet and people don't enter the data because softwares are not easy enough for them to use. And that's where I also feel the bigger disruption in AI can happen to help you make better decisions, where like you can build custom workflows. You can change your Shopify with like extra parameters, extra properties that you want to track. With AI, building those customizations are very easy. So I think even ERP as a whole, you don't have to go and be like, this is the exact functionality and I need to use the ERP. Rather, you could now come to me and say like, this is my workflow. I need a product that solves it so that I enter the data from day one, from the planning phase till when I get the data to when it's sold. That way, the other part of the AI which uses these data can easily work because that has so much innovation. It's so easy to do. So that's where we are concentrating more at the beginning stages, because every one of our customers, we want to make sure they have the data. And then, yeah, you can make those decisions. So yeah, at the end of the day, what I want to, a TLDR office is more like world is changing. So to a certain extent, you could go to people and be like, I don't care about technology. I don't care about software. This is my workflow. Give me something that works for my workflow than your company needs to change for using a software.
I like the approach, and I think a lot of listeners will be happy to hear that, because everyone is building a business and every business has a different workflow, a different style of how they manage the business, the ordering process, and so on and so forth. And if you have a system that basically adapts to what you do and not just a ERP system that you have to adapt to, then that's a huge advantage, a huge benefit there. Now, tell me, from your experience with your clients, how's the process from coming from a, let's say, cluttered spreadsheet world into going into an ERP system?
So for me, it is two different types of companies, right? Alala, for example, are using a very outdated ERP for over 10 years. And when we want to bring them on, they only had data after a factory confirms it that they are shipping. The only reason they had the data from that point in ERP is because you need to key in like every value, and it's just pain when something changes. It's not hooked up to your email system to just send POs out of the platform. That's with legacy ERP. So when we moved over, the challenge was making sure that like whatever is in like WIP, like the work in progress data, also moves into the system from their spreadsheet. That moment was actually, I would say, like very seamless, because there was an ERP, there was certain structure there. It's easy to move them to a new platform. And I have seen that when people are already using an ERP, it's easy to move them. When people were not using an ERP, when they are only in spreadsheet, they do not have like any kind of structure, especially at the beginning stages, for us to like put them in and in a way where we can run reports. Yes, we can put them one-on-one from spreadsheet, and you can't run reports. And sometimes even barcode assignments, for example, when it's not tracked through a system, a barcode was assigned to 3 different SKUs. Basically, like barcode is the UPC code that you get, and it needs to be unique for each item, whereas they were like replicating. So the data sanitization part definitely took a lot more time than I would have liked, but definitely all these custom AI tooling do help you with those. But to a certain extent, I can't do anything, right? Like a human has to say that, okay, now that I have assigned the same barcodes for 3 different items, which one do I choose? When I was looking at these people, when I was onboarding these people, the first thing I got is that like, you don't even have to wait for a company to be 10 people, 20 people to board like a full-fledged ERP system. Even at the beginning stages, even with Shopify, don't have a free flow text. You can choose from a drop down. So you need to take some time to see how to configure your Shopify so that there is data integrity. Data integrity is like the biggest piece, even for AI to be more useful. So one of the advice I have is like, if you are a new fashion brand or any retail brand that's starting out, and if you're still in spreadsheet, that's okay. At least for a 101 use case, make sure a lot of these like color namings and everything has a convention. A lot of them are like even within your spreadsheet is a drop down rather than each user typing it in. That was the biggest challenge I have seen when I moved people from spreadsheet to an ERP versus like someone who is already using an ERP for 10, 20 years.
And it makes perfect sense. And I think that gives also the merchant a chance to revisit their data structure they have. And as you said, you need to have data that is really quality data to make it work. And I think with a process going from looking into the data and what you're doing now into a system like yours, there's a lot of advantages there in just getting better in the quality of data that you work with.
Yes. So one of the exercises I do with all my merchants, which I feel is so much easier with AI, is that I ask them like, hey, explain to me all the process you do. What are the different roles in the company, and what is everyone's like day to day and what they see in their spreadsheets. Then feed this to AI, and it will immediately draw like a nice flow chart. Previously, it used to take me 2 hours to put in effort to do flow chart. This like immediately. Then you walk through, which is like, this is your flow chart. This is how your business is operating. This is what you need at each stage. Now let's take a step back and see how to structure your data so that each and everyone can be very efficient in their day-to-day task. And that homework is really important. Even if someone comes and sells you a dream ERP, I feel if you don't do the homework, that you are just going to pay the ERP and not get the best out of it.
Yeah, and I think it also helps to have someone coming from the outside with a fresh set of eyes and helping you to look at your business, because it's easy to get lost in your own business and don't see the forest because of the trees. So having somebody not only providing the software like you do, but also providing a fresh view on what you're doing helps a lot. Can you share some examples of brands that you have worked with and what kind of results they saw?
Tier 3 swim, for example, cut out bunch of they used to have someone like to upload packing list, which is the things that you get from factory. So we have an AI that now they can just upload, which parses, and they just need to verify. So you don't need another like an Upwork person doing it. Another brand used to have an Upwork person to create labels, just like resize labels, make it in a nice size and like send it to factories. Now they don't have it because the labels just generated immediately. And another PO manager, this is the most feedback I have got from every customer, is that their PO managers are more efficient now, because we have like very simple functionality of like send to vendor that immediately like changes your whole PO to PDF, sends it through in the backend through your own Gmail. There is nothing changes in their part. That has made them like more than 50% efficient. It used to take them like 1 hour to write a single PO, download it, upload in your Gmail, write the email and send it to your factory. Now it happens in seconds, not like the 2 hour of this whole process. And even more importantly, one of the biggest thing I heard is not just the time savings. We have a CRM part where you could upload a document and then even HubSpot doesn't do it, which becomes a fashion thing. Like you can create like a outreach with an attachment. Even in HubSpot, you can't have an attachment. And that is one of the biggest complaint I heard from people, is because now a lot of times when they do these bulk emails, when you have to attach while sending the email, people attach the wrong flyers. Like, hey, my employee made a mistake by attaching the spring 2024 flyer instead of a fall 2024 flyer. So now what happens is that data integrity come into play. The CEO of the small brand uploads the flyer, creates a template that this is going to be the outreach for the next 3 months. So users just click their customers and send the email. So those kind of places is not just making people more efficient, it's making sure your employees do not make any mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two parts to it. Yes, everyone is efficient, but the biggest feedback I always get is like, I don't see mistakes from any of my employees. I can trust the data I see in this platform. I can trust that my workflow just will work.
Perfect. I want to dive a little bit on the technical side of things. Obviously, you said data connection is very important. Data flow is important. What kind of interfaces and API does Flaire offer?
So we very on technical side, it's like we follow something called BFF pattern, because my backend is very different from front end. So we are by default, like even within the UI UCs operates out of an API. So if you have APIs, we would immediately like open up our APIs endpoint that you can build any integrations you need. From the front end side, this allows me to be more nimble. So based on users workflow, I can create like custom UI, custom workflow. Our user interface changes for each and every customers. And it's easy. From technical perspective, why this makes sense to me is because you want front end to go with the flow of every customer's workflow and not like people have to adopt. But when it comes to testing, when it comes to stability of the platform, your backend needs to be very robust. So it cannot be like you write backend code for each customer. So what we do is like whether it's a PO, data management and everything, it's all our backend opens up the APIs and we make sure all those are well tested out. A manual QA test apart from all these automations and testing. So I can trust that my backend works very well. Front end, what I observed is like all my customers, once they say this is the clicks I do, they do not do anything different. They do the exact same clicks. So it's easy to build a custom front end and be like, okay, these clicks are working. My customer is going to be happy.
Okay, now that sounds very good. I mean, that's having a stable platform in the back end is very important, but also having a platform that's user-friendly is important. Now, we were already touching a little bit on the onboarding process, but can you tell me what kind of steps are involved and how long does it take to get up and running?
It varies. Again, if you're coming from an existing ERP, it's usually like within 1 to 2 weeks, I can move you because your data is in like a very good state. But when you are not coming from an existing ERP, I tell people, let's not rush through this before you sanitize your data, then you would regret it later. So let's take like whatever time you need based on how your data is to cleanse it. Because cleansing the data needs to come from the customers. So they need to make sure they schedule it. The process, how it usually works is like I first talk to them, like I said, I draw the flow chart to understand their business and be like, let's both of us be in the same page. One, I want you to be sure that this is how your business operates. Two, I'm an outsider to fashion industry. The way I learn about each customer is by talking to you about, is this how your business works? So it's learning on both sides, right? And once that is done, sometimes I have to explain to them to restructure their architecture. An example would be for Alala, we did this and it was great. So traditional ERP, someone places an order in website, it goes to your ERP, and from ERP, it goes to your warehouse. And sometimes the connection breaks. It used to take them 12 to 24 hours sometimes to get the order to warehouse. But you don't need that. The truth is Shopify to warehouse integrations are so nice. Why don't we integrate warehouse and Shopify? Where Flair, like traditional ERP, give you the data by observing what happens. So when a customer places the order, within 5 minutes, your warehouse people have it. Within an hour, you ship it. But you get the data in Flair. So I kind of need to educate them a bit on like, I know this is how your traditional ERP has taught you that everything has to happen through ERP and it slows you down. As someone who comes from a very technical background, I see data and flow very differently. Why can't we re-architect and make ERP less critical? But operationally, it's like you are more efficient. So that education sometimes I feel like takes anywhere from a week to a month based on the customers, based on how much time I need to explain and like set up. For some people, I don't need to set up a demo. I explain this, they get it. For some people, I have to set up like a demo environment to say why this is more efficient in long run, why this is a good thing to have. Even if you cut out Flair tomorrow, you are still operational and you can try different ERPs. And it kind of takes sometimes like for some people to set up the demo and explain to them what I need takes like a month.
I totally can relate to that. So the fashion brands that I have worked with, the usual founder is not a data scientist. That's what I can tell you. So they're coming from a different mindset. And I think it's good to have somebody like yours on the side who might ask even uncomfortable questions to get your business optimized and you get the data flow right. And again, a fashion brand, they're not necessarily coming from crunching numbers on AI level or ERP level. So that's a huge benefit there. Now, how does your pricing structure work?
Like most ERPs, very honestly, the pricing is pretty flexible based on the business and the amount of module you need and data. So we work through it. One, I strongly believe pricing should not be based on users because then that defeats the purpose of everyone being in the system and using the system every day, entering the data every day. So we don't do usage-based pricing. The way we structure the module is pretty much like how much SKUs you have and whether you just write POs or whether you need CRM modules. So the pricing, the base price is, I would say $10,000, but our customers have anywhere, sweet spot has been like anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 based on your operations.
Mm-hmm. Now that's obviously gives you security in your budgeting and you know what you're dealing with. So that's perfect.
Yeah. We try to be very transparent. We don't charge for implementation. And it's a startup. At this point, I tell my customers, like, if we end up seeing that it's going to be more than what I promised you, I wouldn't do anything for the first or second year, but at the third year, we can again negotiate on like what is the right thing to do.
Okay. Harish, before our coffee break comes to an end today, is there anything you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
If you're a fashion business hearing this, and if you are in Shopify, do not have ERP, even if you don't want an ERP, reach out to me in LinkedIn. I'm happy to just geek out on how you can use Shopify effectively from day one. Because that way, when you want an ERP, you are in a good place. That has always been the takeaway for all the fashion brands I kind of like speak with.
Okay, cool. Where can people go and find out more about you?
I am very active in LinkedIn. You can look up SC Harish, Santa, Canada, Henry, Apple, Rat, I guess, in Indiana, Santa and Henry.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes anyway, so you will be just one click away. And I hope a lot of our listeners will reach out to you. I think it's an amazing combination that you have there, coming from a data perspective, working only with fashion brands. I don't think there's anyone else on the market doing this. And there's a lot, as I said, a lot of advantage and benefits in there in working with you. Thanks so much for your time today. I hope to hear from you soon again, and all the best.
Thank you.